this year, it's not just strawberry shortcake. If it doesn't have whipped cream made in Florida, it doesn't count as the official state dessert. So you can call for whatever kind of sugar you want in it. Brown sugar, white sugar. You can set those details to make it the official state coffee. They're still beefing about that up here. It's really funny. Um, anyway, to get on with business. Still, we're dealing with the same bills. Some movement this week. We're kind of in a place here where you will see some movement, but basically, with 3 weeks to go in the session, we're 2/3 of the way done. Once we get done with next week, most of the committees have stopped meeting now. There's still a few that are. They'll be wrapping up their business for the most part next week, and then the final 2 weeks of session, they will spend on the floor. So if your bills aren't there or close to being there right now, you're in trouble. So we've gotten rid of a lot of over the weeks. As you've seen, I usually have a few bills on there saying that I'm going to take them off the list. So a lot of them are gone. The one that opened up CCNA and stopped and wouldn't require agencies to spread out the work. We had some stuff that the state was coming down on the local governments, and if they didn't do certain things, they would lose funding for some of their projects. Those types of things have all gone by the wayside, and we won't be hearing any more from them, which is good. And so we're kind of down to the big ones. Not that something else couldn't come up. I always remember 2 or 3 years ago when the University of Florida threw up the exemption for universities from CCNA, and I think that was in the last 2 weeks of session. So anything can happen, but we'll go through these that we have been watching. We're kind of in this period, though, where all the committees have done their work. So now bills are headed to the floor, and the Senate bill isn't the same as the House bill and vice versa. And so they spend some time where you might see the bills sit still and not move through committee, sort of getting everything worked out so that then when they do start moving again, they've got them properly postured to pass the chambers and be sent to the governor. So one that's getting close are these 2 construction defect claims bills. I still have unknown on them. The CLGR met yesterday, decided that, well, let me explain the 2 bills. They're very similar, except that except for one thing, the Senate bill 736 reduces the 10-year statute of repose to 7 years for latent defects, which is good. However, and I think we talked about this last week, except for single family homes, it would allow a claim at any time in the future, 20, 30, 40 years from now, if the claimant could prove that there was fraudulent concealment of a defect. That they set the bar really high because they require clear and convincing evidence of the fraud, which is a high bar to meet legally. So it would be very hard to do, but it was still there, and it lasts forever. Kind of hangs over your head forever. The House bill does something very similar, reduces the 10-year statute of repose to 7 years, but then for the fraudulent concealment, it creates a 15-year statute of repose. Still has the clear and convincing evidence part. So CLGR decided, if we had to, we could live with the 15-year. We don't want the never-ending ability to claim, but to get that 10-year down to 7 years, would be worth the trade. However, I will let you know that all of us, engineers, contractors, architects, anybody on that side that is affected by this, we're all against it. So kind of here's where we are. The bill passed out of the full Senate yesterday. So it's gone to the House with the language, the open-ended language on it about fraudulent concealment. So now the House has to act on it. So what they can do, or they can do a few things. They can accept it as it is, pass it, and send it to the governor. Or they could come back and they could say and amend it and put that 15-year statute of repose in there for fraudulent concealment. Or they could just take that section out and leave the rest of the bill as it is. So you would get a 7-year statute of repose and a few little fixes to the right to cure and and that would be that. And that's what we're pushing for. So when I say CLGR says we can accept this, we're not running out there and saying, hey, we're okay with this. We're okay with this. Our position inside the legislature is, but we want that to go away, and just have a 7-year statute of repose for latent defects. But we just don't know exactly how they're going to go here in their negotiations. So yesterday's discussion was kind of a what if, if it comes down to this, do we support it? Do we try to kill it? What do we do? And so basically, to sum it all up, we are trying to get that 15-year or the unlimited statute of repose out of the bill. But if we have to accept something, it would be the 15-year. We will not accept the open-ended ability to claim, for forevermore. So,
Alan,
so that's
Alan,
you have
quick
people with
question.
their hands up.
okay.
Alan, did you get an opinion from Kurt on that fraudulent concealment?
Well, it is what it is. Basically, is what he told me is, you get the 10-year down to 7, and then, you have a 10-year statute of repose right now. The bar's high to meet, but you could have a 15-year statute of repose that you're still kind of out there. Somebody's going to try it, even though the bar is high. Somebody's going to try. So you do run. There is the risk that you would be sued. You have to defend yourself and all of that. But will it happen very often? Probably not. And then, obviously he doesn't like the open-ended stuff where it's a cloud hanging over you forever. So he understands. He also understands, though, that what we're trying to do is just completely get it out, and we'll only take that 15-year as a last resort. And all of this comes from, the Senate president, who has one of his constituents or one of his big supporters in his ear wanting to do something about the statute of repose. This fraudulent concealment stuff's coming from the trial lawyers. Well, you're reducing the statute of repose, so give us something, kind of thing. So, but we're trying to get it out, and now that it's gone over to the House, we're working on the folks in charge of this bill in the House to just say, this came up at the last minute. We don't know what the true effects of this will be. It will cause more, litigation, blah blah blah, and just trying to get them to take it off. And so we'll know here soon, what they're going to do with that. So keep your fingers crossed on that one. I think we're in pretty good shape. That's a pretty massive group coming against it. With all the, we're talking ABC, AIA, in addition to ourselves, and other, subcontractor groups and stuff. So that's quite a large amount of opposition. So we'll see what happens. Were there other hands that were raised? I tend to be looking at the screen in front of me with this information on it, not really looking at my phone.
Alan, it's Whitney.
Mm-hmm.
So I am just now getting back. So bear with me. Yeah, thank you. Some people know I was out on maternity leave, so I've been out for a while. And so I just wanted to ask, and I'm sure this has been discussed, but what is meant by the period begins to run 45 days after completion of improvement? Because I know that the start of the clock has always been one of our biggest issues, as far as my company's issue with the current language.
Yeah, they do it kind of the same way. They're just terming it differently. If you Laura, if you haven't yet, put the report up on the chat for people to download. If you click on that, the blue number there, you'll get to the bill, but it's still kind of the same thing. When the CO is issued, or final payments made, those types of things. So 45, but it is 45 days after those things happen. I think currently it's when they happen, but they've got it at 45 days after it happens.
Okay, because I know that.
I know that's not relief for those of you, whether it's on the engineering side or contracting side or whatever, that are in there early and out early. There's no real, there's no real benefit there for you guys, other than other than hopefully we get it down to 7.
Thank you.
And welcome back. By the way, you do know that having a second child, the expenses are not doubled. They go up exponentially.
Yeah, I was, it's funny because my second child, like the baby, he's a really good sleeper. However, it doesn't matter because him and my toddler are not on the same sleep schedule, so I'm still not sleeping. It doesn't matter. So yeah, it's funny how it works when there's 2.
Those of us with 2 kids can attest. We've been there. All right, moving on. Transportation projects. Senate Bill 398, House Bill 157. They may have yesterday been put in a position where they've been kind of stalled here for a little bit. The only big difference between the two is the House bill has the minimum amount for the project to use progressive design build set at $400 million. The Senate has it set at $250 million. That's not that much to overcome. They can split the baby on that or do whatever they want. The problem with this bill, and I mentioned it a couple of times, I don't really put it on the report, but there was language in that bill, again, that would cap the amount of money that seaports and airports can get annually out of the trust fund. And the current language in the law says that at least 15% of the annual revenue for the trust fund has to go to those projects, but they would add and no more than 25%. So they're putting that 25% cap on there. Obviously, the seaports and the airports don't like that. We had taken a little more active posture against it last year simply because we were asked to by those groups. But have still expressed that, we don't like that part, but they added in the progressive design build this year, which kind of, we like that more than we hate the other part. So, but just yesterday, the sponsors of both bills, Hooper and Andrade, both agreed that they would take that language out, that cap language. So that really leaves this bill as nothing more than the progressive design build contracts. And hopefully that'll free it up. I've just had a feeling all along that's what was holding it up. I could be wrong, because I don't really hear a lot of people, a lot of people, that aren't in favor of the progressive design build. I haven't heard any opposition. So, although I did hear that FTBA, maybe it was their idea. They wanted it along with the FDOT. But they may be having some second thoughts. I heard, I haven't talked to a Nance. I don't know for sure, but I don't know what their issue is. We would take it at much lower amounts than 250 or 400 million, but to get it on the books, we're willing to do that. So, do we have any questions on that? Okay, and the structural engineer license has passed the full Senate, and has, or wait a minute. No, it's passed all 3 of its committees, so it'll go to the floor of the Senate now. Excuse me. The House bill was switched, so now it's just a recognition of engineers that would pass that exam. It's not a new license. They don't have to pay any fees. There's no certification. There's none of that. It's just a recognition from the Board of Professional Engineers, and that would allow you, which I don't know what would stop you now, but it would allow you to use that information in your marketing materials, so on and so forth. I know that's not what our structural engineers want. Yesterday I was told they're hopeful they can make some changes in the last committee. It's got one more committee to go in the House, and or on the floor, to get it more where they want to go. I don't know what the chances of that are. If you look at the House Bill 375 at the bottom of the page, it was removed from the State Administration and Technology Subcommittee. And excuse me for moving I got my phone leaned up against my computer. It was removed from that second committee, which to me says that this is all they're willing to do. So they're moving it on to the third committee. If they want to pass it out of there and send it to the floor of the House, they will. But, I'm a little, I just don't think they're going to go much further than what they've done. The House is just very much anti-regulation, very much anti-license. I just think this is about as far as they're going to go. And so the structural engineers will have to decide how they want to deal with that. Anyway, moving on to the ones the one that's taking most of our time now is these mandatory building inspections, which of course are all related to Surfside. The Senate bills did not move this week, so they are exactly in the same posture that they were in last week when we discussed them. The House bill did move. It passed the Appropriations Committee yesterday, so it goes to the full House now. I don't get into the reserve, all of the record keeping requirements and everything required of the condo associations. I stick strictly to the structural parts of this. And we've got some issues with the House bill. First of all, they don't have any experience requirements for the people doing the inspections. It simply says you have to be licensed under you have to be a professional engineer licensed under Chapter 471. Well, that's pretty wide open to anybody that's a professional engineer. Although in some discussions with staff, committee staff the other day, they did bring up, well, your Practice Act says that, you basically stay within your area of expertise or action can be taken against you. And I'm like, yes, that's true. But on the other side of that, you can have people that have just passed their PE license, may be in the structural realm, and now they're out doing these inspections. We just think that we need to put, some kind of experience requirement on there due to the lack of a definition of a structural engineer in the statutes. And they're pushing back on that. They don't want to do that. And that's something that we really want. Now there was, the Senate has that in their bill. It's 5 years of structural design, 5 years of inspection of existing buildings, experience required to be an inspector. What they did change for us, they had, the House is getting too deep in the weeds. What we really need, you've got the Florida Building Commission, you've got the International Code Council, you've got the American Concrete Institute, all these different groups that have, sets of standards and best practices and all these different types of things. And the House is getting into sort of using terms that they don't define in the bill, but that are defined somewhere else in the building code or something like that. Or they're trying to put definitions on words and terms that already have other definitions in the Florida Building Code or elsewhere. And so I keep telling them, you're going to mess something up if you do that. Don't feel like you got to get in the weeds and recreate the process here. ICC has standards and procedures for existing building inspections. American Concrete Institute, has volumes of information on that type of stuff that are used by the Building Commission. They know what these terms mean. They know how all this works together. We just need the legislature to put together the framework of what you want. You want it to be, mandatory statewide. You want a phase 1 inspection, which is the visual one. You want a phase 2 inspection, which can be, as deep an inspection as it needs to be. You need the report to go to the building official. You need the building official to be responsible for making sure the repairs happen. But in the end, what you want to do is send it to the Florida Building Commission and let them take it over to fill in all the holes and provide all the details, working with all of these other code groups that are out there. And the House is just getting really deep in the weeds and getting into things that, and we're trying now to cross-reference back to these different organizations and find out if we're messing something up. And so in the end, what's going to happen here, this bill's going to go to the full House. I don't see that they're going to make any more changes. They did change some things for us that we were concerned about it, 3 or 4 other issues. One was that the inspector would have to deem that the building was safe. Safe isn't defined, but unsafe is in the Florida Building Code. So they changed that to say, unsafe conditions were not observed, would be what the inspector would have to say in their report. They also opened it up. They had it, just to show how deep in the weeds they are. They had it where, until they amended it yesterday, that you could only send the report to the building official via U.S. mail or by email. But at the same time, they were requiring an embossed seal. And well, you can't do that by email. So they fixed those things for us, but we still have big problems with the qualifications part. So anyway, getting back, it'll go to the full House. I don't know how much more they'll change it. They're kind of out in the lead now, as the Senate bill still has one more committee. So they'll probably get their bill passed first. It'll go over to the Senate. And we're already working with the senator and all the groups that I've been working with on this. We all like the Senate bill better. It does what we need it to do. It sets up the framework without getting into the details too much. And, just have the Senate kind of stand firm. If there is something, and it's not a bad bill, don't get me wrong, looking at the House bill, it's not a horrible bill. But, maybe pull a few things out of there that we all like that, might be a good idea. But try to keep the most of it as, the Senate bill as it is, because we're all much more in favor of that bill. So it'll just come down to that when the bill starts going back and forth between the two. For those of you that might be a little new to this process, we call that bouncing bills, because it'll go to the House. The House will do something to it. They'll send it back to the Senate. He'll do something to it. They send it back to the House. You can have bills bounce back and forth between the two chambers multiple times before they finally get them done. So, and with 3 weeks to go, I assume that's what will be happening with this bill over the next few weeks. So I think we're in good shape. I think, we need something in place to get this process underway. And, we're not far away. We've got a few things we need to fix, but all in all, I think we're in pretty good shape on those bills.
Alan, you've got a comment from Mr. Pullman in the chat.
Hey, Don, how are you? I'm not seeing the chat. Can you just?
Oh, sure. I'll just leave it to you, Don.
Yeah, the House talking about this, they want all these things. Well, they're opposed to the licensure, which I understand is kind of a philosophy, but then the importance of the condominium inspection, they're working at cross purposes or contradicting themselves. I think it's important for us to go back and stress the structural engineering licensure as the point of qualification. Just having the requirement that an engineer, a licensed engineer, being adequate for the inspection of these buildings, it's obvious to us that that's not the appropriate qualification. Right. If they're looking for, protection of public health, safety, welfare kind of thing, I don't know why it's unclear to them that having any, professional engineer as an adequate qualification is appropriate. Come on, that's just wrong.
Right. The interesting thing on this just a personal comment. The interesting thing on this, Don, is, this bill is a huge thing. To go to this mandatory statewide inspection system of all of these buildings that we have out there that millions of people live in, is a huge thing. And you go into these committee meetings and there's the legislators, the bill's explained to them. They have no questions. They have no comments. They don't debate it. You got a handful of people sitting in the audience. We all wave our time and support. And it just kind of flies through without a lot of attention being paid to it. But, that's some of the other issues that come in there, like strawberry shortcake for dessert, and it's in the media for weeks. And I'm not lying. They're still arguing.
I understand it. They get focused on the most ridiculous things, and they're not doing their job.
And they're also focused on these, very controversial issues, redistricting being one, the 15-week abortion bill being another one, and they've got 3 or 4 others that really every day you go over there. You used to go years ago. I'm dating myself a little bit, but you go over to the Capitol and maybe once during a session there'd be some sort of protest about something. It's every day. You wade through a group of protesters to get in the Capitol, protesting, any number of things. So the whole deal's really kind of changed over there. Now I don't mind so much that it's kind of flowing pretty easy. It seems like, you know, the bigger players in this, the building officials and the insurance companies and the condo associations and you know, the folks on our side are all playing pretty nice right now, and we all want the same thing, which is all a good sign. And that thing being the Senate bill as it is. Yeah, when it goes to the qualifications, they're not getting it. You know, as far as the professional structural engineer's license, that would need to be changed, because that only applies to basically the folks that do threshold buildings and new construction.
Okay.
It's not existing buildings. So that would have to be done a little bit differently if we were going to make it fit in. And there was talk along the way about at some point fitting this in, but having said that, we don't have a statutory definition of a structural engineer. So just to say anyone licensed under Chapter 471 can do this isn't right. So our idea was to put, you know, you've got to have 5 years of structural design experience and 5 years experience inspecting existing buildings. You know, we thought that, you know, kind of got us where we needed to be, or as close to it as we could get, so that it's clear who we're talking about that can do this. But then, you know, when we did that, the insurance industry came back and said, well, you don't have enough engineers to do it, which might be true. We don't really know, because they don't license by discipline, and we don't have any idea how many structural engineers are actively working in Florida. So yeah, I don't know. And I tell him, I'm like, that might be true. But in the Senate bill, the buildings that are currently more than 30 years old would have to be inspected by December 31st of 2024. Well, that's almost 3 years from now. And so, you know, we have plenty of time. If we don't have enough engineers to do that, you know, we're going to have to back up and figure something out. But it gives us time that if we see those kinds of problems developing, you know, we'll have you know, we'll have 2 or 3 more legislative sessions to deal with it, or if it's something that could be dealt with through the building commission, we'll have time to deal with it. And that's kind of my answer to them, because what we don't want to see is, you know, something get out there and it's not working, and so the legislature, as they are known to do, just goes back and unwinds it, and you're back to square one.
Alan, one of the issues some of the House members had with the separate SE licensure was that there was a fee attached to it to register as a separate for that license, and they consider that a tax, and so they can't do they won't agree to anything can be considered a tax in an attack ad this coming election, which is insane.
Right.
So.
Well, that's a you know, that's not new for this bill. That's their argument on a lot. If you remember, they went back a few years ago and took away a lot of the fees or reduced them significantly for certain licenses, got rid of some licenses. You know, we didn't see it this year, but for the last few years, we've seen that bill that would sunset every license, including the PE license, unless you could prove, you know, that you were worthy. So that's, you know, that's just the makeup of our house right now. But that's just a, you know, is it a real concern, you know, to them? Maybe, but it's just one they can bring up to throw a hurdle in your way. Well, you know, they're gonna have to pay. Well, you know, what engineer out there can't afford to pay that little? I don't know exactly what the fee is, but I assume it's very insignificant.
$200 or something.
Yeah, and you know, who you're going to pay a lot more than that to take the test. So.
Alan, this is Edie. I just wanted to mention that we are in the process of turning up the heat a little bit from a public, a PR standpoint. And by turning the heat up a little bit, I mean that I have been placing editorials under Alan's name, you know, that really focus on the importance of this legislation. And by turning the heat up, it plows the field a little bit for Alan and team, Derek, you know, to have the opportunity with a lot of wind behind their sails to mention some of the concerns that have been addressed today.
Well, go ahead and tell them about your poll.
Oh, absolutely. So last week, the week before Valentine's, we were out in the field with a question in the latest, most recent Mason-Dixon poll. And it basically, we were just trying to gauge the public support, voter support, trying to determine, do they support this type of legislation? Obviously, we highly suspected what the results would be, and actually our suspicions were accurate. And so I can tell you that the voter support for passage of this legislation is overwhelming. It's actually greater than 4-1. And they are very supportive of periodic inspections of all multifamily residential units. And we shared that information this week with the media. There was a large story in the Miami Herald, Tampa Bay Times, and it also was picked up in various other news outlets. I will also share with you that as a result of that information that we released this week and other communications that I've been sharing with media on behalf of ACEC of Florida and FES, I spent a great deal of time with the Wall Street Journal on Wednesday of this week, and they are preparing an article, just doing some of their groundwork at the moment. And they're truly waiting, kind of at this point of waiting to publish it until about the time it begins to hit the floor, or that would be either the House or Senate floor, and or near its final passage. So just know that there, continues to be national interest on this story. It's really not a story. It's, it's a, an important issue, I should say.
Yeah, we're pulling out all the stops on this one because, the one thing is, and I think sometimes people misunderstand that, when you make recommendations like we did here, or you actually take language and ask somebody to run a bill for you, once somebody puts their name on it and they put a number on it, it becomes their bill. We're advisors now, but it's their bill to do what they want with. And so you have to be careful of that. So far, like I say, in the Senate, it's all been fine. The other issue with the House bills, it didn't come from a, typical sponsor. It came out of a committee. And that was just a little over a week ago. So, this is a new bill that, comes out far after the deadlines any individual could sponsor a bill. And it just comes out of this Pandemics and Public Emergencies Committee. And so they're in control of these bills. So, the position we find ourselves in is, trying to fix the things that need to be fixed and, keep things out that don't need to go in and keep the things in that we don't want to take out. So as it's going back and forth between the House and Senate. So that's kind of where we're at. I mean, that's just part of the deal. It's nothing new. We do this every year, but it's part of the legislative process. And, our forefathers did not intend for this to be an easy process. And, but I think something is going to pass here. I don't think we're going to get into a position on this one where they'll just let it go and nothing will pass. And I think we're making sure that, with these polls and keeping this alive in the media and doing those types of things that he does a great job doing. I think it just kind of keeps that pressure on them that you've got to do something, and it keeps us in the forefront as well, so that it helps what we do, what me and John and Derek do, makes that easier as well, because the legislators know we have the media's ear on this one. And so 3 weeks to go. That's a lifetime in the legislative world. So,
Alan, Jamie's got a comment, as does follow up from Dawn.
okay.
And not really a comment, just there aren't very many of us structural engineers here in the state. So I think that was a valid point, that we don't have enough of us, but that's it.
Alan,
One thing I can't
go ahead.
get through with the House staff the other day is I said, well, think about this. If we had the requirement of 5 years of structural design and 5 years of inspection experience, what if we said that, if you're licensed under 471 and you're practicing as a structural engineer, but you don't have those years of experience, you know, you could work under the direct supervision, however you would want to phrase it, you know, of an engineer that does. That would increase the pool of people. But, you know, we're not just talking about engineers. Architects are allowed to do this as well. But I don't think there's nearly as many of them as even there are of us. So,
Alan, my point is, you know, having a survey, a public opinion survey, or something to that effect that Edie was talking about, and your point about this bill moving forward and they're going to pass something, I think that's how we get things done. But the unintended consequence, and it may reflect what happened in these committees, is that there's no discussion among the legislators, because they do want to do something, and there's a lot of support. But we end up with language in there that you've mentioned here today that may not be, I'm just going to say, may not be appropriate. So that makes it that much more important. And I think you're on the right track. But really does emphasize how close we need to get the language correct, because they're going to pass something.
right.
And to the number of structural engineers and so forth, I really like what you mentioned. If there's a 3-year time period, let's not be concerned about that. Let's get the language in there for the qualifications, and they can adjust the 3-year time period in sessions in the future, and just make that adjustment in the completion date. As long as we got the qualifications, we got the work going forward over the next 3 years, we'll see success from that, and they can move the date. That's a whole lot easier than changing the qualifications. That's my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Yeah, I keep trying to emphasize to the House staff that, you know, and I keep showing them, like, you know, okay, you're defining substantial damage here. Over here in the building code, it says this, you know, you're trying to say this, and this never made it in the bill. They ended up changing it to something else yesterday, but these conversations were going on actually Wednesday evening. And I'm going, you have to be real careful about that, because if you put a definition for a term in statute, you know, it may very well just, you know, make the definition that's in the Florida building code meaningless. And you create a whole lot of confusion and a whole lot of problems in an industry that's complex enough already. You know, and that's, I keep going back to we just need the framework from you. We need you all to say it needs to be statewide, that, you know, ... with the, you know, you're flying at the 50,000 foot level, let the building commission take it from there. And, you know, where all the experts are, you know, and they've got technical advisory committees, and, you know, I'll get well, you know, they're very slow. Well, they are, you know, but in the end, we have one of the best building codes in the country. You know, we'll wind up there with this as well, but it's going to take a number of years for us to get there. And I always like to bring up too, I'm like, if we had been thinking ahead and had taken on this issue before Surfside ever fell, this would have been a 3 or 4 year bill to get it done. You know, to get it completely vetted out and with all of the stakeholders. And we're trying to do it, you know, in a matter of months. You know, Surfside just fell in June. And we're trying to get this done in a matter of months. So we want to take it slow. We don't want to just go diving in, changing everything. We want to take it slow so that we get it right, or we're going to cause some real problems. And that is the 18th time I've said that this week.
Keep it up.
Any more questions?
I think we should make you engineer of the year, Alan.
Go for it, man. Just do a resolution just for me.
Resolutions.
Yeah, we're gonna resolve you.
Proclamation.
A proclamation. Okay. For those that don't know, Carlos has us set up next week to be recognized from the floor of the House and the Senate, which means I'm gonna have to put a suit on to go over there and sit with Carlos. But
Yes, sir.
But yeah, they'll read out. They'll read.
The House
they'll-
recognition is Tuesday of Engineers Week, which is next Tuesday, the 22nd at 1 o'clock. And then the Senate recognizes the engineers for Engineers Week on the 23rd at 3 o'clock. Welcome. Alan and I will be there. Wear a suit
Hey, don't forget.
and a skirt or a business.
No, I'm gonna wear pants too.
And Kelly's going to be there. She's going to arrive there early.
Well, anyway, we appreciate you doing that, Carlos.
Thank you,
That'll
sir.
be for the organization. So, but outside of that, if there's no other questions, I'm gonna go get ready and head for Orlando. Tonight is the Engineering Excellence Award, so look forward to seeing those of you down there that are going to be there. You will not see me in a tux often, but you will see me in one tonight.
I think someone should take a picture of that so that I can put it on social media.
Yeah, no pictures, please. No pictures.
Does
All
It's
right.
okay. We're gonna have tons of them.
Don still
Don, you
has his hand up.
Don, you just raised your hand again?
He just never put it down.
Okay.
Hey, I don't know how this stuff works. This technology is
I
beyond me.
just saw,
Okay.
Zon's got to be getting tired then.
All right, everybody. Have a wonderful day.
yeah.
Take
Have a
care.
great
y'all.
weekend.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank
See you
you.
tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.